Let's talk about Paulo Freire. This dude was different. Born in Brazil in 1921, Freire grew up during the Great Depression, which deeply influenced his views on education and social justice. He saw firsthand how poverty and lack of education could trap people in a cycle of oppression. This experience shaped his life's work. He wasn't just some stuffy professor, even though he was smart as hell. Freire was a revolutionary thinker who believed that education should be a tool for social change. He didn't just want to teach people to read and write. He wanted to empower them to question the world around them and to fight for their rights. Freire cared about the people. He spent a lot of time working with the poor and marginalized communities in Brazil. He believed that the people who were most oppressed by the system had the most to teach us about how to change it. He listened to their stories, learned from their experiences, and used that knowledge to develop his educational theories. He believed in education, but not the kind that just fills your head with facts. Freire was all about critical thinking. He wanted students to question everything, to understand the deeper meanings behind what they were learning, and to see the connections between their education and their lives. He called this approach problem-posing education, where students and teachers learn together through dialogue and reflection. Freire thought education should be about liberation. He believed that traditional education systems were designed to maintain the status quo and keep people in their place. But he saw education as a way to challenge and change the system. He wanted to create a new kind of education that would help people to see the world in a new way and to imagine new possibilities for themselves and their communities. He wanted to free people's minds from oppression. Freire believed that true education should help people to become more fully human, to develop their critical consciousness, and to take action to change their world. He saw education as a path to freedom, not just from ignorance, but from all forms of oppression. His book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, is like a blueprint for change. Published in 1968, it has become one of the most influential educational texts of all time. In it, Freire lays out his ideas about how education can be used to empower people and to transform society. He argues that education should be a collaborative process where teachers and students learn from each other and work together to create a more just and equitable world. It's about understanding how education can be used to control people. Freire talks about the banking model of education, where teachers deposit information into students' minds and students passively receive it. He argues that this model reinforces the power dynamics of the status quo and keeps people from thinking critically about their world. And more importantly, it shows how education can be used to set people free. Freire's alternative, the problem-posing model, encourages students to question, to dialogue, and to think critically. It's about creating a learning environment where everyone is both a teacher and a student, and where education is a practice of freedom. This book ain't no joke, it's powerful stuff. It's been translated into dozens of languages and has inspired educators and activists all over the world. It's a call to action for anyone who believes in the power of education to change lives and to change the world. But don't worry, I got you. We're going to break down Freire's ideas and see how they can be applied in our own lives and communities. Whether you're a teacher, a student, or just someone who cares about social justice, there's something in Freire's work for you. We're going to break it down together. We'll look at how Freire's ideas have been used in different contexts, from adult literacy programs in Brazil to social movements around the world. We'll see how his vision of education as a practice of freedom can help us to create a more just and equitable society. Freire's ideas changed how we think about education. He showed us that education is not just about learning facts and skills, but about developing our critical consciousness and our capacity to act in the world. He challenged us to see education as a tool for liberation and to use it to create a more just and equitable society. He showed us that education is political. It's about power. It's about who gets to decide what knowledge is important and who gets to access that knowledge. Freire's work reminds us that education is a fundamental human right and that we all have a role to play in making it accessible to everyone, and it's something we all have a right to. So let's dive into Freire's work and see how we can use his ideas to make a difference in our own lives and in the world around us. Because as Freire taught us, education is not just about learning, it's about liberation. All right, so what's Pedagogy of the Oppressed all about? This book, written by Paulo Freire, is a groundbreaking work in the field of education. It challenges traditional methods and proposes a new way of thinking about teaching and learning. The main idea is this. There are two ways of teaching and learning. Freire identifies these as the banking concept and the problem-posing concept. Each represents a fundamentally different approach to education. First, there's the banking system. That's the traditional way. In this model, the teacher is the authority and the students are passive recipients of knowledge. The teacher is like a banker, depositing information into the students' heads. The students are expected to store this information and regurgitate it when required. Students just memorize and repeat. They are not encouraged to understand or question the material. This method stifles creativity and critical thinking. No critical thinking, no questioning. The students become passive, bored, and disengaged. They are not active participants in their own learning process. Freire says this system is messed up. He argues that it dehumanizes students and treats them as objects, rather than individuals with their own thoughts and ideas. It treats students like empty vessels. They are seen as containers to be filled with knowledge, rather than as active participants in the learning process. It silences their voices and keeps them from thinking for themselves. This method maintains the status quo and prevents any real change from happening. This keeps the powerful in control. The teacher remains the authority and the students remain subservient. There is no room for dialogue or collaboration. Then there's Freire's way problem-posing education. This method is all about dialogue and interaction. The teacher and students work together to explore and understand the material. Here, teachers and students learn together. They ask questions, they challenge each other. This creates a dynamic and engaging learning environment. They connect what they learn to their own lives. This makes the learning process relevant and meaningful. Students are encouraged to think critically and apply their knowledge in real-world situations. This is how you empower people. By involving them in the learning process, you give them the tools they need to think for themselves and make informed decisions. This is how you create real change. When students are active participants in their own education, they are more likely to become engaged and responsible citizens. They are empowered to make a difference in their communities and the world. Now, let's talk about oppression. This word gets thrown around a lot, but Freire breaks it down. He says, oppression is when one group of people has power over another group. This power ain't always obvious. It can be about race, class, gender, anything. Think about it. Who gets to tell the story? Who decides what's important? Who benefits from the way things are? Oppression is about systems that keep some people down and others on top. In education, oppression looks like textbooks that only tell one side of the story. It's teachers who silence certain voices. It's a system that doesn't value everyone's knowledge and experience. Freire doesn't just talk about these ideas in the abstract. He gives real examples. He talks about his work with peasants in Brazil. He shows how they learn to read by discussing their own experiences. One example is about a group of farmers learning about land ownership. They talked about their own struggles. They realized that the system was rigged against them. This knowledge gave them power. It made them want to fight for change. Freire also talks about cultural invasion. That's when the dominant culture forces its values on others. Think about how history is often taught from one perspective, ignoring the voices of the oppressed. Section 5. Why this book still matters today. So, why should you care about a book written over 50 years ago? It's a fair question. After all, the world has changed so much since then, right? But has it really? When you dig deeper, you realize that many of the issues Paulo Freire discussed in Pedagogy of the Oppressed are still very much alive today. Freire's insights into the dynamics of power and oppression are not just relics of the past. They are a mirror reflecting our current society. The educational systems, the social hierarchies, and the economic disparities he critiqued are still prevalent. We still live in a world with oppression. Look around. From the streets filled with protesters demanding justice to the news reports highlighting systemic inequalities, the signs are everywhere. We see it in the news, in our communities, maybe even in our own lives. The struggles for racial equality, gender rights, and economic justice are ongoing battles that echo the themes Freire explored. Education is still used as a tool to maintain the status quo. In many places, the education system is designed to perpetuate existing power structures rather than challenge them. Students are often taught to conform rather than to think critically. But it can also be a tool for liberation, just like Freire said. When education encourages critical thinking and empowers students to question and challenge, it becomes a powerful force for change. That's why pedagogy of the oppressed is still relevant. It provides a framework for understanding and addressing the root causes of oppression. It challenges us to rethink the way we educate and to use education as a means of liberation. It gives us the language to talk about these issues. Freire's concepts of banking education and problem-posing education offer us tools to critique and transform our educational practices. It helps us see the world in a new light. By understanding the mechanisms of oppression, we can begin to dismantle them and work towards a more equitable society. And it inspires us to fight for a more just and equitable world. Freire's work is a call to action, urging us to use education as a tool for social justice and to never stop striving for a better future. Section 6, Freire and Me, A Call to Action. This book made me think about my own education. It made me question everything. It made me realize that I have a responsibility to use my voice. And it made me want to be a part of creating a better future. That's what Freire wants for all of us. He wants us to be critical thinkers. He wants us to challenge the status quo. He wants us to use education as a tool for liberation. Section 7, Beyond the Classroom. Freire's impact. Freire's ideas aren't just for schools, they apply to everything. We can use them in our families, our communities, our workplaces. We can use them to challenge injustice and create a more equitable world. His work has inspired movements all over the world. People are using his ideas to fight for social justice, economic equality, and environmental sustainability. Section 8, A Legacy of Liberation. Paulo Freire left behind a powerful legacy. He gave us the tools to dismantle oppressive systems. He showed us that education can be a force for good, and he inspired generations to fight for a more just and equitable world. His work is more important now than ever. Section 9. Open your mind. Read Freire. So, what are you waiting for? Pick up a copy of Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Open your mind, challenge yourself, and join the movement for liberation. Peace.